This is day 1, Networking Essentials, week 1. It's Tuesday, 27th of August. We talked a little bit about the course, then we talked about what are networks. We didn't get too far. We talked a little bit about lab work, which we're going to do Thursday, and the students work on curriculum. I did mention a couple key things. Metalcraft has a internship, a very good opportunity. You could see me, or you can contact John Hines at Metalcraft, and I can give you the information for that. We're looking at hiring 1 or 2 students in the academic IT area as work studies. So if you're interested in that and you qualify for work study, and you can check with me, I have a list, we can take a look at that possibility too. Talked a little bit about issues wrapped around change. We discussed that briefly. That came from the IT Essentials course, and how important it is to be open to change. More on that later. Here we talked about some major points. For example, we started off talking about computing devices. Processor, memory, almost all devices, some processor, memory, and then some means for communicating between those. Now, a lot of devices also have storage, some kind of storage. Your phone, actually, these two things probably are somehow intermixed, but so then we have storage, and with those, typically there's some way for you to interface, user interface with the device, and UX stands for user experience. How do you experience using the device? That's kind of a big deal nowadays anyway, so there's actually people that have that job title all about user experience. And then a lot of this is from IT and IT Essentials. And then in here we also have this operating system that's going to communicate with this hardware, and then we have some kind of applications that communicate with the operating system, which therefore communicates with the hardware. And then way out here we have people that communicate here, and possibly all the way into doing things with the actual equipment, which we look at tomorrow in IT Essentials. But anyway, so we have this whole area here that you can think of is how we have hardware on our devices interact with software. So we need to know that for our computing devices in order to be able to move to this next area, in which I'll call communications. So these devices can communicate with other devices by going through some intermediate equipment. And we listed some things. You can connect to an access point. You can connect to a cell tower, 4G or 5G access point using Wi-Fi. You can connect to a switch using wire. And then routers, we learn more about later on, can route your traffic. You can route it through here, or to this way, or this way, or this way, which is really important in the internet to find the most efficient way to move the traffic from Mason City, Iowa to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or whatever where our website's sitting. Okay. So we have our first two key areas. We've got a computing device, and then our next one is how does it communicate. Also with communications, we talk about communicating with the internet, or maybe our own private cloud, or with our own local servers. These intermediate devices allow us to do that. We'll talk about some more examples as we move along. Okay, end devices, intermediate devices, allows us to move through our networks. Next one, talk about is data. And how do we secure data while data is moving, while data is being stored, and while data is being processed. Three key areas. But we'll talk more about that as we go along. But we actually move data with these ones and zeros, you know, that you hear talk about, or else maybe you already know a lot about ones and zeros. So that's another key feature that we talk about. How do we manage the actual data? Because that's what people want. You know, people want to be able to pay for their meal with their debit card and have it electronically transferred from one bank to another. You know, from one account at one bank, this end device, to another end device somewhere out here at the bank or whatever. Okay? So now we've talked about three key areas. The devices, understanding devices, how the devices communicate, and what they're communicating, the data, and how we manage that. Our fourth key thing lies right here. Problem solving. That has to do with thinking. In here comes coding, whether you do a little bit or a lot of coding during your career here at NIACC. But coding, writing code to solve problems, writing code or doing things to do data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning. How do we set up a network so that a small company can function efficiently and secure their data and move the data to where they want it to go. So the whole IT program is focused around these things. Understanding computing devices. So if I was to go through, maybe I'll put a red asterisk by them. Understanding computing devices, how we make computing devices communicate, what we're communicating, how we manage that, and can we design some code or systems, putting these all together to solve problems in the world. Okay? One more page. Our network here at NIACC. So we have gigabit machines connected to 100, and the student mentioned this, that's like a bottleneck, but a little bit, not too bad. 100 million bits per second on a switch. Our PCs are 1 gig, but they all connect. You know, I suppose I could do this. I can make it look like we have the blue cables that connect these. Then there's a cable that connects from this switch to a multi-layered switch, which can do routing. And it then can figure out, do I need to send the information here, 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 or back here. Okay. And there could be 3 things, could be 100 things, whatever. But in our scenario, we have this switch, and then it sends information to a firewall, which then manages the information coming in and out. Basically, it's not exactly like this, but data can get out and let's say go to the internet, and then it keeps track of that particular kind of data and then lets it back in. Okay? But if some bad data comes from the internet and tries to get through the firewall, it's going to block it. Or any data trying to come in the outside, unless we have a specific place to let it through. You'll learn about that. That's pretty fundamental. That's fundamental. Yeah, totally new. Okay? So we talked about these bits moving. The bits move here to here and go out the internet, and the bits come back. And bits, the word bit comes from a binary digit, which are ones and zeros. 8 bits gives us a byte, and we measure how fast things go in bits per second, considered bandwidth. Now, your 3G, 4G, if you're connected to a, let's take a look, if you're connected to a cell tower, this is a cell tower, may have some kind of receivers and senders, those goofy looking things on the top. So you connect to the cell tower using your 3G, 4G. A lot of times they'll call that a data connection, because what it does, it will measure things in bytes. So if you have a 1 gigabit data plan, that means you can send 1 gigabytes, that's really a gigabyte, 1 gigabyte, or about 1 billion bytes of information every month. So they're actually measuring quantity, not how fast. In here, bandwidth, your ISP will say you get so many million bits per second down and so many bits up. We'll look at that later, but they're measuring speed, bits per second. Last thing I'll mention here then, you can have, I asked a couple things, you can have, like I talked about, my phone is connected to the Wi-Fi here in campus, and then it comes out through the main campus to go to the internet. Now your phone could also be connected to a tower using either your 4G or probably not 5G yet. And the last thing, we talked a little bit, we have these routing devices. You got a cable modem that connects to your little router at home, which allows you to connect into the internet too. That's it. It was a good start today. Thanks.